Whereas in this play, you had a woman who was very passionate and intense, the drunk Eve Green, and just sort of showing how she was and putting her in context, contextualizing her makes her more interesting than she is. Because in a sense, this Eve Green, just like this other woman in the last play I just sent you, is not that passionate and is sort of a stale academic. This woman was a prototype of the artistic drunk, if you will. And so there's not much you can really, do to a certain extent.
It reminds me of a Theodore play, too, in that Eve isn't necessarily an interesting character by herself. It's more what's around her that makes her interesting. The character of Annabelle isn't all that interesting either. I think you even mentioned that towards the end of the play. She's not necessarily an interesting character. It's much more the family dynamic that makes her interesting.
Well, we can talk about that one later. That one I tried. That's sort of my play that's an Orson Welles kind of play where I took a lot of the elements from Citizen Kane, but also some other plays too. With this one, going backwards, and then you end up with her meeting Danny and sort of going off on their first little cafe meeting or something. It becomes more interesting that way. And I think it was that Singaporean kid Chin who said that these plays are sort of like a grand sketch because each of them, Danny Wagner fits in somewhere. And the only place so far out of the 23 I've done that Danny Wagner doesn't even appear in is Features, where he's mentioned, or you hear one of the characters talking to him on the cell phone, but you don't hear him. So but he's still mentioned. So these plays are all the world of Danny Wagner, the people he knew, mostly female, but nonetheless. Yeah, I mean, the Eve character. And then I introduced the other character, Maren Jensen, who gets her own play, or who gets her own play just a few plays later, Hung Up on a Dream. That's the 14th play. This is the 9th play. So 5 plays after I did the second woman, I went back and expanded the Maren Jensen character. She starts out in this play seemingly kind of, just typical blonde that Danny likes better than the other one. But then we find out her problems in the later play.
As a general curiosity, as I was reading this, it has a scene where there's a whole bunch of nonsense spewed about people are repeating these things like Linda Burton is a fascist or all men are the same, even queer Asians. Where did you get some of the writing portions, or did you just make that out of carving poems into America's soft white underbelly?
No, this. I mean, those actual words were different, but there were times when you would have, especially in the 90s, when political correctness, you would have different groups lobbying. I mean, they have the Linda Burton's a fascist, the Asian girl with fuck who's saying that, then the dyke in the audience saying all men are the same, even queer Asians, and then I have a scene where three chants are going on, where the bad poet Joe Hanna is saying, "Am I good enough to not be starving or something?" Asking these, and so you would have this cacophony.
Asian girl with food, dyke in the audience.
Yeah, and then you would have, but you'd have this cacophony of people, and these readings would sometimes become a joke and what. But that's the way it was, at least 20 years ago. I mean, like I'm just looking here, black man in the audience. So if there was an angry black man in the audience, he goes, Now eat and then read, you fucking asshole, Johanna. It's good to know your heartfelt pleas can move so many of you. Ken to Dan and Eve, please. Fuck, imperialist dog, Linda. Shut the fuck up, fuck. Asian girl with fuck. Linda Burton is a fascist. Dyke in the audience. All men are the same, even queer Asians. Johanna, that's it, people. Let us mantra together. And then you hear all of them. So, some of the...
What about the shitty poetry, though? Diamond spine of a new world massaged by the pale yellow fingers of a perilous past?
Yeah.
I mean, that beats of bleeding black backs bent under the bending eyes.
Yeah. Or here, Johanna, now the poem. I have lost weight, I have lost blubber. In fact, I am a man. I was more than a man. I'm not a woman. I'm a man who is losing more than fat. So I mean, you'd get these people just ranting. I remember Jessica always makes fun of one time when we were at a reading, and a guy went off, and the woman who actually is the basis for the Linda Burton character walks off the stage as this guy is ranting, and she just says to Jessica, "Oh yeah, he just goes off like that. It gives me time to go to the bathroom." And this guy would be railing, going off, about the fascists, the communists, the blah blah. But that's just the way they are, and I would assume that they're as bad or worse today. And it gave me a chance to have the Don Moss character Ken Ross have a few things, but it's a way to give the milieu of that time and age. And so the story of Eve Green and her brief, if you want to call it, romance with the Danny Wagner character becomes part of a larger background of that time and place, which itself becomes just another little panel in this ever-growing cycle of Danny Wagner's life in these plays.
And when you would perform, it would often lead to applause. Were you an outlier in that sense, or were
People
for all sorts of shit?
Back in the mid-'90s, I would often get some of these people who would call, like I was the only white guy in the mid-'90s in the Twin Cities that would go to poetry readings that were mostly from black poets. It was segregated, self-segregated by a lot of these people. I did a piece or asked Dan Schneider or something on this guy J. Otis Powell, who had recently died in the Twin Cities, and he was one of these losers that was a terrible writer. He did nothing. He was a drug addict and an anti-Semite and whatnot, and yet I went to more poetry readings at black events than he ever did. And I was a white guy, and I was asked to more of them because the people who ran these events knew that if I went there and they could put it on their little poster, like if they had 2 or 3 weeks leeway, that they would get some people who would actually want to come and hear real poetry, because I was known to be I guess maybe the only real poet that could be counted on to read at least 1 or 2 great poems there. So
that's all I wanted to really speak about the second movement, unless you had something else. The other plays, I think, are more complex, if not as great.